If you are always looking for queer books to add to your TBR, you're in the right place. I decided to read a book for every letter of LGBT, and I found some great stories, from romances to literary fiction to fantasy, even with some questionable reviews that made me rethink my selections at first. But with Pride Month just around the corner, I decided to add something else to this reading challenge. So for each book I finish, I'll add a charm that represents that story to my purse so that I'll have a new accessory to rock during Pride. And as a lesbian myself, it's only fitting to start with the letter L. Which means I need to find a book that has lesbian representation in it, and as someone who has a sapphic shelf, I surprisingly have not read a very popular lesbian read, and that's Sunburn, which is described as literary fiction with romance as well. But I saw on Goodreads that someone left this review, and I need to know what it takes to actively be rooting on a fictional character's downfall. So I'll be finding out myself what Lucy did to deserve this, and if this book lives up to the hype. All this being said, I'm expecting a melancholy read that feels like hours laying in the sun could cure just about anything. But y'all, why did the book use the word melancholy on page 16? Sunburn don't even gotta explain herself. I already get her. And early on, I see this book takes place in Ireland, and unfortunately, I'm finding myself wishing I understood the nuances of Irish slang, because I feel that so much is said without being said when they use certain words, and honestly, my time watching Love Island UK has clearly not helped me enough. So I'm a good chunk in now, and this is what's happening. Lucy, our main character, is feeling the pressure from her family and society to date Martin, her childhood best friend, who is a guy, of course. But secretly, she is struggling immensely because she has the fattest crush on her straight best friend, Susanna. This is classic lesbianism, y'all. I'm sad. And surprisingly, the dynamic between Lucy and Savannah, I would actually compare it to the one that Allison and Emily had in Pretty Little Liars during the earlier seasons, because Susanna completely knows how much power she has over Lucy. Even though Lucy has not told her that she has a crush on her, she just knows, and she uses this to her advantage. She'll make cheeky little remarks, and just so y'all get an understanding of the amount of pining and frustration that Lucy currently has for Susanna, there's this situation where a boy who gave Susanna his phone number is brought up, so obviously Lucy is jealous, and so the convo goes, "Do you like him or something? So what if I do?" What an awful blow. Though she looks very serious, she keeps a laugh in her voice like there is a joke I have missed, like this is funny. It reminds me that it's none of my business if she likes him. The small view of her that I've been given is a gift, not a right. It's more than most people get. I should be more grateful. And the setting of this story almost acts as a crucible. The heat forces the truth to come out, and this book is starting to actually crush me. So what if I told y'all the ending made me cry, and I'll be giving this 5 out of 5 stars. And if you've been watching my videos, you might say that I give out 5 stars too easily, but is that a crime? God forbid I enjoy a book. The ending was just so good, and it was crazy because it was one of those books where I literally didn't know what was going to happen until the last page. And honestly, I don't know why this person had it out for Lucy. Was she a lot, a bit messy? Yes, but aren't we all? And if I was trying to convince you to read this book based off of my favorite quotes from it alone, I would show you these. Personally, I loved the author's writing style, and a common way the main characters communicated was through handwritten letters, which gave it all a very sincere touch. And we see them grow from young girls to young adults, and there was a point in their love story that I actually couldn't have anything bad happen to them because I would be too upset. But definitely read this if you enjoy themes of coming out, coming of age, religious trauma, queer awakening, and small towns with big feelings. This book explores deep feelings so effortlessly, and oftentimes these huge feelings were expressed in such few words, which made the book feel both light and heavy at the same time. Now, when it comes to the book that will represent the letter G, it is not a rivalry that happens to be heated, but rather I chose The Bachelor's Valet. It's a historical romance set in 1920s England, and all I know from it is that Alphonse, our main character, will be entering a lavender marriage, and that there is some type of magical realism or fantasy element that will be involved, but I have no clue what aspect of this story will have magic involved, so we'll be finding out together. So let me set the scene for y'all. Alphonse's mom is like, listen, you're 26. You need to find a wife or else I'm cutting you off from the family, the money, the inheritance, everything. And so she arranges a marriage for him. And this is a big dilemma because he's pretty rich. So rich that he has a valet, which is a fancy term for a personal assistant who actually lives with him. And so when his assistant hears about this arranged marriage and sees him struggling with it, he's like, hey dude, what's wrong with getting married? Is it the marriage part or the fact that she's a woman? So his assistant already knew what was up.
And although some historical romances I've read feel like they could take place in modern day, this one definitely doesn't, because of the word choice the author is using. Now, unfortunately, I do have some critiques as I read, although the plot itself is keeping me entertained, and I don't know if it's because the book is on the shorter side, but there's no subtlety with where the story is going. I also just feel like although he's in his mid-20s and getting married, it's reading a bit YA-like. Now, after saying all this, why am I still reading the book, you may ask? I ain't say it was bad now. I'm still enjoying it, but let's see how I feel after a few more chapters. There's a line where his wife, Aaliyah, who is also queer and dating a woman, secretly tells him to treat her like one of the boys because she likes the thought of that. And that line just hits the spot. And this is why I love queer historical books, because you see glimpses of how people couldn't be who they truly are and how they managed and genuinely paved the way for the queer community to come. It reminded me of a photo series I saw once on Instagram that showed scenarios the queer community went through in the past and likely even in the present for some. This post always stuck with me, and if you feel impacted by these photos, then I'd say you would enjoy reading this book. And to me, when she says this line, it implies she perhaps in another life could have been able to act on her inner feelings, maybe through being masculine presenting or trans. And it was kind of funny because her character actually did show up dressing masculine to the horse riding outing they both attended, and Alphonse was overly going.
Were the logistics and execution of this book a bit off for me? Yes. Were the feelings the characters went through very true to what many queer people went through back in the day and make the book worth reading? Also, yes.
But ultimately, I ended up finding the second half of the book to be cozy and pleasing. I do, however, wish this book was longer because the concept could have used more pages, and I would have loved to see more of both couples' dynamics separate from their lavender marriage. But at the same time, I appreciate a quicker read every now and then, so I guess it's a trade-off. Overall, I think the author did the storyline a good bit of justice for only having 235 pages. Personally, I feel the magic, which was more so magical realism, was used as a tool to help explain the quick pacing of the book. For example, a magic medicinal plant is what led to him getting the courage to share his true feelings to Jacoby, his valet. So don't read this if you want a book that's magic heavy, but do read this if you want a short, easy read that deals with the real struggles our community went through in a lighthearted way. Honestly, shout out to the gay community because although I wasn't here for a long time, it was fun. On to the next. Now I'm headed into the land of the bisexuals, and for the letter B, I'll be reading The Seemingly Impossible Love Life of Amanda Dean. And not only am I genuinely obsessed with this cover, but the premise hooked me immediately. So Amanda is getting married, but the book will show us the 4 different people she could have got married to if her life turned out a different way. Now I'm not sure if we are going to see the moments leading up to it and what went wrong, or if it will be showing us what could have been of their happily ever after. And the cover has 2 guys and 2 girls as her suitors, so I'm excited to see who will end up being part of her happily ever after. And I can't lie, this sounds like it could be pretty good.
So I'm 100 pages in, and the book starts on the morning of Amanda's wedding day, and we're jumping timelines so much I might actually tear my ACL. There's a 21-year time jump between chapter 1 and chapter 2. So the structure of the book is more so the moments leading up to her wedding day. So far, I've seen how 3 of her potential happily ever afters started out. However, the person I think she ends up marrying, I don't know much about yet, but on the other hand, I think I know who I want her to end up with, and those are not the same person in my head. So Amanda Dean still has some explaining to do.
But so far, I think the book is raising the question of what is love and how what you choose to prioritize in life can change that definition. But at the same time, this story is challenging what marriage has to be about altogether. And if you are wondering why there's a shot of M&Ms next to this book, you'll have to read the book to find out, but just know it's because the author mentions M&Ms on page 25, 81, 98, 150, 200, 203, and 204. And if she was wondering if we would notice, I did. And I'll use any excuse to buy M&Ms. So, moving on.
I'm happy, I'm satisfied, I'm content. The book ended how I wanted it to. It was like a cute rom-com that you actually want to watch. I enjoyed seeing how her life played out, and the bisexual representation was definitely there, but it wasn't the focal point of the story in that sense because it was just a part of who she was. However, this book did read very new adult to me, so if you're wanting a book that has a grown, settled down type of vibe, I wouldn't recommend this.
I say this because the whole book revolves around finding out who she decided to marry, but most of the story was bits and pieces from her past, and I wouldn't be surprised if someone described this as a coming of age, as there were themes of coming out, finding independence, and simply growing up, which I wouldn't have thought it was about based off the premise. Now, I think I also feel this way because one of the main issues in the story was being dragged out at its core because of a lack of communication that didn't seem necessary to me, and I also don't know that I loved how many timeline jumps there were. I think the same structure could have been kept, but maybe it would have hit harder if we stayed in one timeline for longer than we did, as it wasn't uncommon for chapters in this book to be shorter than 5 pages. But I will say it was a page turner because I just had to know who she ended up with, and the Spanish sprinkled throughout was cool. And I also really liked that the epilogue was only one sentence, because the whole book you're wondering if she chose the right person, and the one-lined epilogue answers that for you in such a simple way. So congrats to the happy bride. Now, for all the tea girls and all the in-between girls, sorry y'all, I just wanted to use a Cat's Eye reference, but for the book that will have trans representation, I'll be reading Love and Other Disasters. It's a romance novel between Dahlia, who is queer, and London, a trans mask who comes out on national television as non-binary and uses they/them pronouns. Now, why are they both on national TV, you might ask? Because they are on a reality TV cooking show, of course. And I myself love watching queer reality TV shows, such as I Kissed a Girl, The Ultimatum, and real ones remember Are You the One Season 8. You had to be there, truly. And when it comes to the competition aspect of the story, I've only read one other book where there was lovers competing for the same thing, and it ended with neither of them winning. So I'm very curious to see if this book takes the same route.
Y'all, the coolest thing just happened. So Dahlia is pointing out how excited she is that the host of the show she's on is in charge of the fish cutting demonstration, and how normally women on cooking shows just get to discuss things such as baked goods or plating, even though they're very much capable of doing the harder stuff as well. And I loved hearing about this as someone who doesn't come from the cooking world, because now I know. And I will be pointing it out and calling it out moving forward, so thank you.
And on another note, the quote on page 52 reminds me of that scene in Bottoms where they are all punching the shit out of each other and going home with blood all over them, just smiling. And so far, I love how old school this book feels because the chapters are long, and not even long as hell, but I feel like the newer books lately are trending towards shorter chapters. But so far, I'm enjoying the reality show aspect, and the burn is definitely slow, but in a very realistic way. The journey these two are having feels very natural, and it's not a slow burn where you feel you want them to hurry up and rush into it, because they both actually have very interesting storylines outside of wanting to date each other, with Dahlia being somewhat fresh off of a divorce, and with London being out as non-binary on national television, and just everything their journey has come with. And so I'm really enjoying that I like these two as individuals, and getting to see both their perspectives throughout the competition show has been so fun. But also, there's some financial disparity between the two, and this author really just knows how to throw in some pretty complex topics so easily, and I'm enjoying how much substance this book actually has. And I've loved reading so far about London's journey with their identity, and the representation is a cool middle ground where the story is not purely about that at all, but it's still discussed a few times. Obviously, either way would make a good book, but for those who don't want a story where the main plot is a character being trans, but they also don't want it glazed over completely either, this is the one. And why is there an onion below each chapter header? Because there's layers to this shit, y'all.
This book keeps surprising me in the best way possible. It's so simple yet heavy and cheesy, but not. It's down to the final 5, and both main characters are still in the contest, but reality is starting to set in that 1, they are no longer normal civilians as episodes have started to air on national television, and 2, their time together in LA could come to an end at any second, with Dahlia living in Maryland and London living in Nashville, so the stakes are pretty high.
This book had a little bit of everything: reality TV, crashed weddings, meddling TV producers, a public scene, complicated family dynamics, trans, non-binary, and a bit of pansexual rep, and so much more. I found myself smiling at the book the last 30 pages because it really was that fun and wholesome. And something really cute between them was how happy they would get at the other person's reactions or emotions, as if their own happiness stems from how the other person was feeling. I had a great time with this reading challenge, and getting to earn a charm each time I finished a book was so fun. I'm obsessed with how it came out, and hopefully this video helped you find some new queer book recs to add to your TBR. But if you're looking for more sapphic book recs specifically, check out these other videos I have, and follow me on Instagram so we can chat books.